My name is Daniel Alvarez, and what I'm about to share with you happened on September 12th, 2019. That day started like any other day. I had been working in a small metal parts factory in Salta, Argentina for over 10 years. Every morning I'd kiss my wife Mariana goodbye, hop on the same crowded bus, and put in long hours on the factory floor until the sun disappeared behind the warehouse windows. My faith, it was there, but just in the background. I believed in God, of course, but it was the kind of belief that never made it past holiday church visits and quiet bedtime prayers, if I remembered. I wasn't thinking about God at all that afternoon. I was just trying to finish shaping a thick steel plate on the press before my shift ended. I hadn't slept much the night before, and lunch had left me feeling bloated and sluggish, but I pressed on, like always, pushing through the haze. Then, suddenly, something hit me from the inside. It felt like a weight was crushing my chest, like someone had dropped a slab of concrete right on my lungs. I broke into a cold sweat, my vision blurred, and then darkness, except it wasn't just darkness. I opened my eyes, or at least I thought I did, and saw something that froze me in place. I was looking down at my own body. People were running toward me, shouting, panicking. My coworker Rodrigo was yelling for help, and someone else had already pulled out their phone to call emergency services. But I wasn't panicking. I wasn't even confused. I felt calm, completely, strangely calm, and my hands, they were glowing, slightly transparent, almost like they were made of light. The world around me looked more alive than it ever had before. The colors were intense, the sounds distant but filled with meaning. And that's when I realized I wasn't in my body anymore. Before I could even process what was happening, I felt it, presence. It didn't walk up. It didn't make a sound. It just was like it had always been there. I turned and saw him, Jesus. I don't mean a figure in white robes from a church painting. I mean someone whose presence was so powerful and peaceful at the same time. I didn't need to ask who he was. I just knew. He didn't speak, not with a voice anyway, but I understood him with a clarity deeper than any words could give. Every part of me responded to him, as if my soul had been waiting for this encounter my entire life. Jesus reached out his hand, and I didn't even think. I just followed. I wasn't walking anymore. I was moving without effort, like being pulled gently through space. We left the factory behind. The sirens, the people, my lifeless body. All of it faded. Where he took me can't really be explained. It wasn't heaven the way we picture it, but it wasn't earth either. Everything around us glowed, not with sunlight, but with something that seemed to come from within every surface, every corner. The air, if you could call it that, was thick with peace. I felt like I was in a place where nothing was hidden, where truth lived in its rawest, purest form. We came to what looked like a vast open space, endless, quiet, glowing. And then it happened. Right in front of me, almost like a giant screen, I began to see my life. Every moment, every detail, things I remembered, and things I had completely forgotten. It was like watching a movie, but I wasn't just watching. I was feeling everything all over again. The words I'd spoken in anger, the times I'd stayed silent when I should have helped, the kind gestures I didn't think twice about. All of it was shown to me with crystal clarity. But it wasn't about shame. It was about understanding, about truth. One moment stood out. I saw a memory from years ago, an argument I had with my father before he passed. I'd always told myself it wasn't a big deal, just a bad day, bad timing. But here I could feel the hurt I had caused him. I could feel the weight of my words the way he must have felt them, and it crushed me. Then, right after that, Jesus showed me a time I had stopped to help a stranger on the side of the road, something I hadn't thought about in years. But that small act had rippled out in ways I could never have imagined. It was like every choice in my life was a stone thrown into a lake, and now I was seeing all the ripples. And Jesus never judged. He never accused. He just stood beside me, letting me see things clearly for the first time. And in that space, truth didn't hurt. It healed, corrected. It opened my eyes. I realized I had lived so much of my life chasing things that didn't matter, worrying about bills, promotions, who said what behind my back. None of that mattered here. What mattered was how I had treated people, what I had chosen to love, what I had done with the time I was given. After what felt like a lifetime and a second all at once, the visions shifted. I wasn't just seeing my past anymore. I was being shown the deeper truth about life and death itself. Jesus turned to me, and again, not with words, but with a presence that filled me, he revealed something I'd never understood before. He showed me how time on earth isn't just something we pass through. It's a gift, a sacred, limited chance to prepare for something far greater. I began to feel this urgency rise in my spirit, like a fire in my chest. Every second I'd spent ignoring the things of God suddenly felt so loud, like wasted breath I'd never get back. Then, he showed me something that shattered what I used to believe about the soul. I saw what happens the very moment a person dies. There's no delay, no hanging around, no spirits wandering the earth looking for closure. The soul either enters immediately into God's presence or it's separated from him. It was that clear. There was no in-between, no confusion. And yet, despite how sobering that was, it wasn't harsh. Jesus wasn't showing me this to scare me. He was showing me because it was the truth, and because truth is the most loving thing he could give. But then came one of the most chilling parts of my experience. I was shown people who thought they were speaking to the spirits of their dead loved ones. People who sat in their bedrooms crying, calling out to someone they had lost, and then hearing comforting voices in return. People going to mediums, hoping to talk to a parent or child who had passed. But what I saw next changed everything. Those voices weren't who they thought they were. They weren't the spirits of their family. They were something else entirely. Dark, manipulative, masked. I saw through them, and what was underneath wasn't light. It was deception. Jesus let me see how the enemy uses grief to twist people's pain into spiritual lies. These spirits looked and sounded like people they loved, even knew personal things only family would know. But it was all a setup. I watched a woman holding a pendant, crying as she talked to her husband's spirit. But then, for a second, the image of her husband slipped. His form twisted into something dark and cruel before snapping back into its disguise. I felt sick. She was being comforted by something evil pretending to be good. And I knew then, Satan doesn't just use fear to pull people away from God. He uses comfort too. That moment haunted me even after I woke up. I realized how dangerous it is when we rely on feelings and emotions to guide us spiritually instead of turning to what God has already told us in His Word. Jesus showed me that these so-called spiritual experiences that people have, visions, ghost sightings, talking to the dead, they aren't harmless. They're carefully planned traps. The enemy doesn't show up with horns and fire. He shows up wearing the face of someone you miss, saying the words you long to hear. And if you're not grounded in the truth, it's so easy to fall for it. I saw people who genuinely believed they were being helped, when in reality, they were being pulled further and further from the gospel. Then, Jesus showed me something even harder to witness. Place. It wasn't hell, not yet, but it was a waiting place, a realm of separation. He told me it was called Hades. The souls there weren't screaming or being tortured like in horror movies. What made it terrifying was the silence, the understanding. These were people who knew what they had lost. They were fully aware that they had rejected the truth during their lives. There was no confusion anymore, no doubt, just the unbearable weight of knowing the door had been open and they had chosen to walk away. I saw the pain in their eyes, but it wasn't physical pain. It was a soul-deep grief, a regret that burned hotter than any fire ever could. And in that place, I felt something I hadn't expected: God's justice. It was perfect, pure, and completely fair. There was no malice in it, only truth. Jesus showed me that every decision we make in life, every act of love or hate, every time we ignore him or choose him, it all counts. It all builds up to something. We're not just drifting. We're building a case for our eternity every day. And once that last breath comes, the truth is no longer hidden. And yet, in the middle of all this heaviness, Jesus never left my side. He wasn't angry. He wasn't impatient. His eyes carried both sorrow and deep, unshakable love. I could feel that he wanted everyone to understand this, not to condemn us, but to save us. That's when he turned to me again, and with more force than anything I'd felt during this whole experience, he said, "I brought you back to testify, not as a punishment, not to scare people, but because so many are walking in darkness, living like none of this is real, and they need to hear it from someone who's been there." When I heard those words, "I brought you back to testify," they burned into my spirit like fire. In that moment, I knew my life could never be the same again. This wasn't just a powerful experience or some strange dream to forget and move on from. It was a calling, a responsibility. Jesus didn't send me back to keep quiet. He wanted me to speak, to share, to warn, and to love. And when I came back, it wasn't subtle. One moment I was standing in that realm of light, and the next I gasped for air. I woke up in a hospital bed with a breathing tube and machines beeping around me. My wife, Camila, was by my side, crying and holding my hand. The doctors told her I had been clinically dead for nearly 5 minutes. They used the word miracle more than once, but I already knew what had happened. I didn't come back just because my body decided to work again. I came back because Jesus said I had to. I had to tell the truth about what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt, because someone somewhere needed to hear it. Since then, everything has changed. I don't see the world the same way. I don't treat time the same way. Every conversation matters. Every act of kindness carries weight. And I don't waste a second chasing things that won't follow me past the grave. I read the Bible with new eyes now, not out of routine, but out of hunger. I pray with a heart that's actually reaching, not just going through the motions. And most of all, I speak. I share this story, not because I want attention, but because I have to. Because the time to wake up is now, not later. Later might not come. If you've made it this far, I want to speak directly to you. Don't wait until it's too late to realize what really matters. The time you have on this earth is not promised, and what you do with it has eternal consequences. Please, don't put your faith in feelings or vague beliefs or comforting lies. Open the Bible. Seek Jesus while there's still breath in your lungs. He's real. Eternity is real. And it starts the moment your heart stops beating. I was brought back to tell you that. Now it's your turn to decide what you'll do with it. If this story spoke to your heart, please like the video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more testimonies like this. Eternity is closer than we think. Let's wake up together.